for the benefit of those who were not here yesterday, in the last session, we discussed two things. One is how to select an optional subject and what are the pros and cons of various optional social science optional subjects. That is what we discussed in the previous session. And we also spoke a little bit about what do sociologists study. And we tried to lay out the idea that sociology is the study of social order and social change. That is what we tried to do in the previous session. Has anybody gone back home and wondered what is social order and social change in this class? Are there any comments, observations? Has anyone gone back home and wondered what is social order? What is the meaning of social order? Yeah. Yeah, can you give me some concrete examples of what could be social order? From Indian society, what kind of order do we have in Indian society? Very good. Excellent. Order in Indian society, one element is your caste system. There is an order to this caste system. It's a predetermined order which none of you by yourselves can change. It's given to you. Anything else? What else? What other kind of order can we think about? Yes, anyone? Okay, not just that. That was something I said in a lighter vein, but you can speak in terms of the patriarchal order. The patriarchal order. A patriarchal order, we will discuss more about this in great detail when we start the actual course. Patriarchal order is the ordering of society wherein men have superior power, status and wealth compared to women. Now what does this mean? Hold that thought for a while. Anything else? Is there any other order? Any other order that you can think of? Very good. State is an order. State and law it's one kind of an order. State and law is one kind of an order. That is, we live in a democratic state. That is what we say. We live in a democratic state. All right. We have what is called liberal humanitarian law. Liberal humanitarian law based on the idea of reformation, reforming the criminal. See, for example, in Saudi Arabia, some places, not just Saudi Arabia, West Asia generally, if you steal something, they'll chop off your hand. If you murder someone, they just kill you in public, they stone you to death. That is the kind of legal order that exists in these societies, based on retribution, revenge. If you do something, I will do the same thing to you. Right? I'm just trying to explain to you that there is a state and legal order, okay, in our society. Anything else? Sorry? Very good. Religion and ritual is a kind of an order. Religion and ritual is a kind of an order. All right. Family is a kind of an order. The family system that we have, it's a kind of an order. What is a family? What are the rights and duties of various members within a family? What kind of relations you have with your wider kin, that is your cousins, your uncles, your aunts. All right, this is also a kind of a predetermined order. Anything else? patriarchal order. Forgetting one very important thing. Economic order. It's a very distinct economic order. Very distinct economic order out there. All right. You can actually see this is how your syllabus is also organized. All right. This is how your syllabus is also organized in terms of the various elements of social order and how they are changing. And how they are changing. That is how your syllabus is ordered. One more element that you are forgetting. Group relations. Group relation. That is, the society that we live in, it consists of various distinct groups. Hindu, Muslim, Christian, that's one group, religious group. Various castes, Brahmin, Dalit, Kshatriya, Vaishya, various castes, right? Linguistic groups, class groups, rich, poor, this kind. And there is a particular way in which these groups interact among themselves. How does the rich interact with the poor? How does a Hindu interact with a Muslim? How does a Brahmin interact with a Dalit? These are what are called group interactions or group relations. All right. So, as part of our understanding of sociology for UPSC examination, particularly in your second paper, we must look at what are the various groups that exist in Indian society and what is the kind of relationship that there is between these groups. All right. This is all that is there in your syllabus. This is all that is there in your syllabus. All right. And how each of this is changing. How each of this is changing. This is what sociology for UPSC is all about. Okay. There are various thinkers who have things to say about various aspects of social order. There are various methodological perspectives. How do you study social order? All right. That is what it is. Okay. That is your syllabus. Now, yesterday there was a student who wanted to know about sources. How do we study? What are the sources to prepare for UPSC sociology paper? Right? Let us spend about 15 minutes thinking about sources. Write down. I'll write on the board, then you can write down. Okay. I'll give you the sources, then we will have some discussion on the agenda for today, that is living in an unequal world, right? Generally speaking, in every social science subject for UPSC, the first paper has good textbooks. Okay, what is a textbook? Where all the information is concisely arranged for the benefit of a student. Okay. For the first paper, you have good textbooks for all social science subjects. Why? Because these are foreign author books. Okay. In foreign universities, social sciences are taught very rigorously as compared to Indian universities. That is why there are very good foreign author books for all social science subjects. In India, there is a severe shortage of textbooks. Generally, the idea is that if you are not a good student, then you study social science. That is the kind of idea that there is in our present society, right? Indian society. But it's interesting that India's contributions, for example, if you look at the Nobel Prizes or, for example, contributions to the world intellectual debate, Indian social scientists have contributed much more than Indian scientists. Who gets Nobel Prizes in India, right? Scientists don't get it. It's the social scientists and people from literature who end up getting Nobel Prizes in India, right? Off late at least, right? So anyway, but they have not studied in India. They have studied abroad. They work abroad. They're just Indian in name. Okay, let us look at the sources. Okay, see, for your first chapter deals with, I'm talking about the first paper now. It deals with the emergence of sociology. Okay, the scope of the subject, that is, how did sociology emerge in Europe? What is the intellectual history of this discipline? That is the subject matter of this first chapter, right? Get this book, Ritzer. George Ritzer, Sociological Theory. That is the book. George Ritzer, Sociological Theory. In this, the first chapter actually deals with this topic. How did sociology emerge? Now, other than this, there are certain elements in this first chapter, such as comparison of sociology with other disciplines, and there's one more, sociology and common sense. What is the difference between sociology and common sense? These two are not given in this particular book. You will have to depend upon La Excellence notes for these two topics. Okay, next, sociology as science. And then you have research methods. There is a book called Certerios Sorantakos. Okay, on we don't know the exact title. It's called Research Methods. This book is the best book to study these chapters, but this book is not up, and that too in this only selected chapters. Okay, it's a 500 pages book. Don't read the entire thing. Selected chapters which I will tell you. And if you order it online, it is costing some 9,000 rupees or something. Don't worry about it. I have a PDF of this book which will be shared with all the students when the classes start. All right, so you can get printouts of the relevant chapters and you can read from this book. All right, then you have the 6 thinkers. Generally, the most used or cited source for these 6 thinkers. Well, who are the 6 thinkers we have? We have Durkheim, Marx, Weber, Parsons, Robert Merton, and George Herbert Mead. All right, these are the various thinkers that we have to study. The most important chapter in your first paper. Okay, if you don't get this chapter, whatever preparation you do for your first paper is completely meaningless. All right, now the most used source for this 6 thinkers is this George Ritzer. But there are certain problems with this Ritzer's book. For example, it deals very well with these 3 thinkers, okay? More than sufficient. If you read George Ritzer for Durkheim, Marx and Weber, more than enough. Alright? Then Parsons is not dealt with properly in this book. Talcott Parsons is not dealt with properly in this book. Then there are certain parts of Robert Merton which are not dealt with in this book. There are certain topics within Robert Merton not dealt in this book. Then just George Herbert Mead, the explanation is very complicated. The explanation for George Herbert Mead in this Ritzer book, it's very complicated. Actually, the subject is not so complicated, but the way it is written in that book, it makes it like look very, very complicated. All right. And and also with respect to the first three thinkers, even though all the information is covered and it's comprehensive, the writing style is very dense. It's very academic, very dense. If you have studied BA Sociology and you are studying these thinkers for your MA Sociology class from this book, then you will be fine. But if you are a fresher and if you start reading this book, then you will snooze. In 30 minutes maximum, you will fall asleep. All right, because the writing style is very dense in this book. All right, for the 6 thinkers, the most important part, you rely only on my notes. I'll give you notes, rely only on my notes, because if you start reading, all right, read from these books for these papers, okay, it will help you. But for the 6 thinkers, because I have included the way to write in the exam. Suppose a question is asked on Karl Marx's notion of alienation, for example, a popular repeated question. All right. What exactly to write, how much to write, what examples to quote. This is all given in the notes and it simplifies your job. All right. The most important part of the first paper. Okay. If you understand the 6 thinkers well, your job is half done. All right. Then there is another important book, Harlambos and Holborn. Students ask me which color. We go to a Vikas bookstore and ask sir, give me Harlambos Sociology. He'll ask you which color, because there are 2 books. One is orange in color, one is blue in color. That orange color book is useless. Okay, some toppers are saying that is enough. It's not enough, not at all enough. Okay, there's nothing in that orange book. It's a very small book. The blue book, this is a must-have book. If you take sociology optional, whether you buy the other books or not, you must buy this book. This is the main textbook. This is the main textbook that you will follow for your first paper. All right, main textbook. This has very good coverage of religion, family, politics, these chapters. Okay, gender also. Religion, politics, family, politics, gender. Yes, social stratification. Very good coverage. Now even it's all organized according to these topics. Okay, of course gender is covered as part of family. Family and gender comes together, right? But it is organized chapter wise like this. Now again, don't read the entire chapter. Each chapter is about 60 to 80 pages long. You don't have to read the entire chapter. I'll tell you what to read. You read from there. All right. This is the main book. Then there is a chapter called Work and Economic Life, which is not mentioned in this, which is not available in this Harlambos. Work and Economic Life, not available in Harlambos. All right. Now this is given in, if you want to read from a text, all right, there is a book called Anthony Giddens. Anthony Giddens Sociology. It's also a textbook. Anthony Giddens, it's just called Sociology. The book is called Sociology. Now, both these books, Harlambos and Holborn and Anthony Giddens, it does not make any sense to buy both, because both are textbooks only. Both are written by British authors. All right. So both are textbooks. You have to buy only one of the two because they are expensive also. They are about, I don't know, in market now 1500 rupees around. Okay, textbook. So buy one of the two and buy this. Buy this. Okay. The difference is that if you buy Anthony Giddens Sociology, it is very reader friendly, student friendly. The explanation is very simple in this, but the coverage is not exhaustive for our UPSC perspective. Coverage is not exhaustive. Now some students were asking me if I want to read some book to get an idea about sociology, whether I am able to understand or not. For that purpose, buy this Giddens book. If you just want to read to understand whether you are liking sociology or not, you can buy Anthony Giddens and start reading the first 2 chapters, okay? Because it is explained in a student friendly manner. It's explained in a student friendly manner, alright? But generally for your preparation, this is the book you will follow. And what do you do about work and economic life? Notes. You will get notes. Alright? This is the idea. And finally, there is this one last chapter, social change. Theories of social change, development and dependency, science, technology and social change. There is no single source to do this chapter. What will you do? Notes. These are the sources for your first paper. Okay, how many books have I told you? Ritzer Sociology, Soterios Sarantakos, then Harlambos, that's it, 3 books. Get these 3 books. Soterios Sarantakos, I'll give you PDF. By Ritzer and Harlambos. Go to any UPSC aspirant's room, sociology optional, 2 books will be found. George Ritzer, Harlambos. Okay, get these 2 books. There may be one small subtopics which are missing here and there. Don't worry, you will get notes for all those things. Okay. Have you all taken this down? Can I erase this? Let us now go to the more difficult part, that is the second paper. As I told you, there is no textbook in India. Now, the usual wisdom that is out there in the market is that you read from IGNOU books. IGNOU is this Indira Gandhi National Open University. Terrible quality books. Okay, not even the English formatting is correct. Okay, grammatically wrong English. And most of these books are actually copy paste from, they take huge paragraphs from the original writer's book, they copy paste it. Okay. Very poor quality material. Suppose you are simply reading from these books, you won't be able to understand anything because the way it is organized, the way things are explained, it's very poor, very poor. So forget about IGNOU. Okay, that's what I tell my students all the time. Forget about IGNOU. It's a huge waste of time. Alright, huge waste of time. Second, there is one person who got a rank, alright, and he wrote a book called Essential Sociology. Essential Sociology. And he wrote this book. Nitin Sangwan. Okay, no names. But anyway, he wrote this book called Essential Sociology, right? Now, this book is not a book actually, okay? It is actually this person's notes and he has copy pasted the notes of various coaching institutes. That too in a very brief manner, some from Praveen Kishore sir's notes, some from some other Mahapatra notes, Upendra Gaur's notes. Like this he copy pasted here and there in a very haphazard manner. And this second paper, the entire syllabus is covered in some 200 pages. Very brief. Okay. That will not at all help you write answers in your exam. So forget Essential Sociology. LexisNexis publication, they have published it. Forget about it. What is the way to study then? There's only one way to study. That is, for each topic, there are different books. You should take those books and study. But I know 101%, none of you are going to even buy those books and make an effort to study. So you study from the notes. Okay? Because all these books are bought by me. and over years I have distilled what is important for UPSC, and I have prepared notes, and that will be given, but they will not be in printed format. Okay, the notes that will be given to you will not be in printed format. Why? I don't want it to be circulated. All right, so that will be handwritten notes, scanned and sent to you. You look at those notes, copy down with your own hand. Okay, that is what you're supposed to do. All right, but Firbi, if you want to read, what are the sources, right? We should know. There is one Sage publication book. These are a series of articles published, compiled together, and it is compiled by Ishwar Modi. It's called Pioneers of Sociology in India. In this book, you will find good articles on the work of M.N. Srinivas and G.S. Gure. These are the two thinkers in your second paper. You will find good quality material on this, right? Second, there is a book called Anthropology in the East. Anthropology in the East. Founding fathers of whatever, anthropology in India, whatever is the subtitle, okay? Now this book has an article, that is essay, that is written by Sujata Patel. You don't need the entire book, okay? Sujata Patel essay on A.R. Desai. Sujata Patel's essay on A.R. Desai. Alright, this is one thing. Then there is a book edited by, it's an edited book, Oxford publication, edited by Deepankar Gupta. It's called Social Stratification. Must have. Buy this book, okay? If you are buying one book for your second paper, buy this book. Alright? Social Stratification. This book again has a lot of good essays. This book has a lot of good essays on Louis Dumont, alright, disputations of Louis Dumont, Sanskritization, Westernization, Jati, Varna, class in India, like this, excellent articles, okay? Get this book if you can. Okay, Social Stratification. Then, there is a book that is edited by T.K. Umen. Okay, these are actually 2 volumes. It's called Social Movements. Okay. This is the book from where you can comprehensively prepare on all the social movements in India. Or Ghansham Shah. He edited a book. No, it's not an edited book. Ghansham Shah, Social Movements. This book is also called Social Movements. You can refer to these 2 books. You can refer to these 2 books. Alright. Then there is a book called Oxford Handbook on Indian Sociology. It's a good book. You can find some discussion on issues such as education in India, child labor in India, right? The Indian city, informal sector in India, labor relations in India. These kind of issues can be found in this book. Another good book. Okay. So if you want to buy one more book in Indian for second paper, get this book. Okay, get this book. Okay, first preference is this book. Then after that, you still have some money, you want to buy one more book, get that book. All right. It's called Oxford Handbook on Indian Sociology. Oxford Handbook on Indian Sociology, get that book. Right. Then for this population, there is a chapter called This Size is Enough. Population. For issues related to population in India, there is a book by authors Bhende and Kanetkar. Bhende and Kanetkar. You can get this book, Bhende and Kanetkar. All right, very useful book for your population, but for one, this is like some 400 pages. Okay, but one chapter will you really read 400 pages? I really doubt it. Okay. Bhende and Kanetkar, you can get this book. Then there is a book called Oxford Handbook on Politics in India. Oxford Handbook on Politics in India. Oxford Handbook on Politics in India. You can read this book to get an idea about the nature of Indian state, the nature of Indian democracy, right? What political parties, okay? These kind of issues can be found out from this book, okay? Or you can actually, if you're not getting this book, you can get this book called Politics in India by Rajni Kothari. I know nobody will get it, don't worry. It's written by Rajni Kothari. You can get this book, again a very dense book, you will not understand even a single word. But introduction chapter is very good. If you read the introduction, you get a very good idea about how to look at politics in India. What is the basis of politics and political mobilization in India? Okay. What role does caste play in Indian politics? What role does religion play in Indian politics? Right? If you read the introduction, it is very helpful. But for just for introduction, will you spend 500 rupees? Nobody spends it. Anyway, I am just giving you the names. Then, yes, the third preference book, if you want to get a book for your preparation, get this book called Modernization of Indian Tradition by Yogendra Singh. Modernization of Indian Tradition. A book written by a popular sociologist called Yogendra Singh. Why is this book famous? Because there was a time when UPSC examiners used to frame a lot of questions directly from this book. They used to frame a lot of questions. So UPSC examiners used to frame a lot of questions directly from this book. All right. So it became quite popular among UPSC aspirants. All right. So you can get that book if you like. Okay. It's interesting book, but very dense again. And apart from this, there are dozens and dozens of books that are written. All right. But these are the basic. Okay. One more. State, society, and tribes. This is the title of the book. It is written by Virginius Khaka. You can get this book for your tribes chapter. For your tribes chapter, you can get this book. State, Society and Tribes in India. In India, okay, whatever. You will get it if you just Google it. State, Society and Tribes in India. It's written by a again a popular scholar by name Virginius Khaka. You can get this book. Okay. Then for a general reading, if you generally if you want to read some book, a good to have book that you bedtime reading kind of a book, I don't know whether you will follow it or not, but there is a book called Contemporary India, a Sociological View. Okay, now it's a core, even though the title appears as if it's written for everyone, but it's a core sociology book. Okay, so you may follow or you may not follow. All right. But if you want to, now other than this, if you really want to read a good book for just for understanding, there is Oxford has something called as a very short introduction series. Okay, not that. I think Orient Black Swan. Yes, this publication. This publication has a title called Caste and Introduction. I think this is what it is. Caste and Introduction. This is how it is titled. It's written by a scholar by name Surinder Jodhka. Okay, you can get this. You can get this and try to read up. Okay, it's written in a very simple way. Okay, to understand what is caste system in India. What happens when you read this book is that you understand how sociologists argue, how they reason, how they write. Alright, so you get an idea about what to expect going forward. Right? So for your second paper, if you want to just read some book to understand what sociologists actually do, get this book and read. It's cheap. It's about 150-200 rupees. Okay, get this book and read, and you'll understand what sociologists actually do, how they write. Alright? These are all the sources. Now apart from this, whatever you need, only one source, Law Excellence Notes. Okay, that is the place. Go to solution to write answers in your examination. Okay, they are all organized in such a way that you get one example, some data points, some thinker names. These are all the ingredients that go into a good answer, which we will discuss tomorrow. How to exactly start preparing. Okay, tomorrow we'll spend some 15-20 minutes again at the beginning to think about how do we exactly start preparing for this sociology option. Yesterday I told you how to choose an optional. Today, where to study from. Tomorrow, how to study. Okay, that is the agenda for tomorrow. Alright. Is this all clear to everyone? Okay. Shall I erase this? Okay. Now, please pay attention in today's class. So, because some of the things that you will pick up today will actually help you understand the subject better when we start on 15th. Alright. So please pay attention in today's class. It's not a chai pe charcha. It is a proper class. So please, whatever notes you want to take, you can take. The title of today's lecture is Living in an Unequal World. Living in an unequal world. Right. Inequality is the topic, theme of today's lecture, right? First of all, something that we will discuss in the days to come when we start the course. There was one type of society, and from this another type of society emerged. Something happened between 15th to 19th century, Europe. Something happened. Okay. We had one kind of society earlier. It became another kind of society. This society is generally called in social sciences traditional society. Traditional society. Or it is also sometimes called the pre-modern society. Pre-modern society. Alright. From this society, something happened. A lot of things happened in between. This society emerged. This type of society emerged. Alright. This process has been called the Great Transformation of Europe. The Great Transformation of Europe by a very popular, famous social scientist, Karl Polanyi. Karl Polanyi. Okay. It's called the Great Transformation of Europe. That is, the transformation was so rapid, that is so fast, and so fundamental, that is, the very basis, the very foundations of human thought, human belief system, social organization, the very foundations of these elements were transformed in Europe. Alright? Which is why Western Europe and the Northern American continent are called modern societies. They are modern societies. What kind of a society is India? Yes? Anyone? If Western Europe and North America are modern societies, what kind of a society is India? Yes, anyone? Developing, developed, okay, that is related to economic theory, economics, talking about wealth there. India is a modernizing society. That is, India is still making this transition from a traditional to modern society. It is somewhere in between. Some traditional elements, some modern elements, all sit side by side. You want to send Mars mission, fine, very good, but they break a coconut in front of that before. Certain things are there like this. Where do you work? IT, cutting edge technology. Marriage, only my caste. Like this. Alright. So India is a modernizing society, right? We'll come to India. Something happened in Europe, and this something is related to three things. It is related to ideas, where people think this changed. Politics changed. State, politics, these things changed. Economy changed. Economy changed. Okay. The way people thought, this thought process changed. Then your economy changed, your politics changed. Three things changed. Fundamental changes. And a completely new kind of society emerged from this process. It took about 300-400 years for this process to be completed. And as this process went on, so many phases in this. Renaissance, Reformation, Scientific Revolution, Enlightenment, the Mercantile Revolution. What are all these? We'll study, don't worry. Mercantile Revolution, Industrial Revolution, you have the French Revolution. So many things. French Revolution. So many things happened. And from this great churning, it was a very violent process actually, quite violent. Europe went through a lot of violence, churning, so that the old man can die and a new man can emerge. The old kind of a human being can die and a new kind of a human being can emerge. Europe went through this process. That is why they are a modern society. In India, this process has not happened. Certain dynamics we will examine closely. Now, this is what happened. Now, what has this got to do with our discussion on living in an unequal world. In this type of a society, the general thinking was that the world as we see it, whether it is the natural world or the social world, okay, is God ordained. It is made by God. It is through the will of God that we live in this world. That was the main kind of thinking to be found in this pre-modern society. That is, suppose if I ask you, why does it rain? It's God's wish, God's will. All right. Why is there an earthquake? God's will. Why is there so much suffering in this world? Why are people dying of hunger? God's will. Why is there a pope and why are there laymen? God has appointed pope. Why is there a king who has absolute powers? No checks and balances. Whatever the king wanted, the king could do. And why is that there are slaves? That is, they have no powers. Whatever the slave master wished, the slave had to do. Why are there these inequalities in this world? Alright. They said that inequality is God ordained. It's natural. Just as how rainfall is natural, just as how night and day are natural, like that, inequalities are also natural. There is a natural order to this world. And it's a God ordained order. And who are you to question it? If the God has made you like this, who are you to question it? This was the kind of thinking that went on during this traditional period or pre-modern period, the main argument. You are born a slave because God has made you a slave. That's the kind of a thing. Now, this kind of a society transitioned from transition into a new type of society. In this new type of society, there is a process that went on which is called the desacralization of mind. Okay, don't write it down. When we do religion as a topic, we'll do it. It's called a desacralization of human mind. What is this desacralization? Sacralization comes from sacred. Desacralization is the idea that you stop believing that everything is related to God. Human mind loses its magical belief system. Human mind loses its magical belief system. One thing I personally notice is that Indian mind is quite magical in it, prone to magical beliefs. Okay, it's very easy to convince Indians about this or that kind of a magical intervention. If you do this, this will happen. If you do that, that will happen. They don't, Indian culture is not fully in the realm of cause-effect thinking. No. It's not fully in the realm of cause-effect thinking. So many godmen, right? What is the best business to start? Suppose all of you fail UPSC examination. Baba. Godman is the best business to start in India. Because surplus customers. Okay? Depends upon your innovation. If you can sell innovative products, you get surplus customers. One of my friends' parents, they bought something, it's called some Shani Yantram or something, or some 20,000 rupees. It's nothing but a copper plate. Just one copper sheet, it has some designs made on it. Very innovative marketing. Okay. Suppose if one of you is an early riser, just switch on TV. Okay. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, you switch on the TV. So much of marketing, advertising. Anyway. So there was a process called desacralization of mind that occurred in Europe. wherein even though they also believe in God, they also have magical beliefs, but the relevance of this kind of religious magical thinking declined to a great extent. It declined, drastic decline. People are religious, but religion is not very central to their lives. Okay, you cannot sell that Shani Yantram to a Frenchman. Okay, they don't believe it. All right. Now, as this hold of religion as a justification for inequality declined in the European society, people started asking, why is there inequality? Okay. Why is there inequality? Two questions. Why is there inequality? Is it good or bad? Why is there inequality? And is inequality good or bad? How many of you believe that more equality is better than less equality? If I gave you an option, do you want to live in a more equal world or a less equal world? More equal world? Yes, why? Can you please explain to me?
So, if you are a teacher, because you have some knowledge on society, that's why you are teaching.
Okay.
If you have that much of knowledge, we couldn't come here.
So?
According to Aristotle, that he said there should be rich and there should be poor up to some stage. Can you know Telugu? Do you know Telugu?
Yes, speak in Telugu.
అరిస్టాటిల్ ఏం చెప్పారంటే సొసైటీలో ఒక రిచ్ పూర్ రెండు అనేది ఉండాలి, అది ఒక స్టేజ్ వరకు మాత్రమే ఉండాలి. ఒక స్టేజ్ మించి అనేది పోవద్దు, స్టేజ్ మించి దిగదు, రెండు బ్యాలెన్సింగ్ ఉండాలి. ఎందుకంటే ఇప్పుడు ఒకరు బిల్డింగ్ కడదాం అనుకుంటున్నారంటే అందరూ బిల్డింగ్ కడదాం అనుకుంటున్నారు, అందులో పనికి వచ్చేటోళ్ళు.
Okay. Anyone else wants to?
లో ఈక్వాలిటీలో ఉన్నప్పుడు మన సుపీరియర్ ఏదైనా ఛాన్స్ ఉన్నప్పుడు లో ఈక్వాలిటీ సొసైటీలో మన సుపీరియర్ కూడా స్కోప్ ఉంది అంటే లో ఈక్వాలిటీ సొసైటీ పోతుంటాం. ఒకవేళ మనం తక్కువగా అంటాం అనుకుంటే ఓవర్ ఈక్వాలిటీ సొసైటీ.
Very good. What your friend has said, did you read about this somewhere or just common sense? Okay, there is one famous writer by name John Rawls, a very famous political scientist. He wrote about what is called the veil of ignorance. He said that you can comment on this question or your opinion about whether you want equality or inequality is valid only when you don't know whether you will be low or high in the society that you create. What he said is that, suppose you have to comment upon whether society should be equal or unequal, right? He said that fine. Your opinion will be valid when you go behind this veil of ignorance. You are standing here and now you have to create a society. Okay, and you create an unequal society. Like this, you create an unequal society. Rich, middle, poor, like this. Okay, this person's creation of this society will be valid only when he doesn't know in which strata he is going to fall. Okay, if he knew that he will be at the top, he will make a very unequal society, right? There's a book called A Theory of Justice, John Rawls. All right, good common sense. Next, anybody else? Anybody who feels passionately about equality, that there has to be equality? Anybody here who feels passionately? Come on, guys, don't be so pragmatic. Your preamble speaks about equality. It's a cherished goal. And none of you feel passionately about, you want an equal society? Yes. How much equality do you want? How much? As in, చెప్పండి తెలుగులో.
ఈక్వాలిటీస్ ఉన్నాయి సొసైటీలో.
Hmm.
అంటే అందరూ నేను అన్ఈక్వల్గా ఉన్నాను అని అనుకోకుండా
Hmm.
ఓకే నాకు ఈక్వాలిటీ అనేది ఉంది.
Okay. No, the question I am asking is, you want equality, but how much equality do you want? I'll give you an example. Suppose I conduct a test. Okay. I give you certain syllabus and I conduct a test. Some of you have studied hard and attempted the test. Some of you have just come like this. You have not studied. Should I award the same marks to everyone? No. Then there is one person who is very good at mathematics, technology, coding, these kind of things. 12-13 years he started learning C, C++, this kind of languages, then went to IIT, worked very hard, okay, did not give in to the pleasures of the body, okay, and he sacrificed a lot and he studied very hard. That is one person. Then there is one Telangana boy, okay, that is did not study well. I am also from Telangana, that is why I am saying Telangana boy, okay. Did not study properly, wasted lot of time. Then he had all the resources, okay. There are some characters like this, very rich, father MLA, MP, son nothing, okay. Wasted all his time, had all the resources, okay. Now at the end of 10 years, should we give them the same salary? Should the society give them the same salary? No, right? You want equality, but you also want to be rewarded for your efforts. Isn't that the case? Ability, yes. You want to be rewarded for your abilities, but you also want equality, right? When I ask like whether you want equality or not, people are generally prone to saying that yes, we want equality, but at the same time you also want to be rewarded for your efforts. All right, there is this problem, okay. The idea here is that during this great transformation that occurred in Europe, all right, first thing that they said was that everyone is born free and equal. Everyone is born free and equal. There is equality at the stage of your birth. Because you are a human, you are born a human, you deserve equality. And you deserve freedom. You are born equal and free. This idea is called the idea of moral equality of all men. All right? The idea of moral equality of all men. That is, as human beings, we are all born with some equal potential. We are born with equal potential. All right. Then second, they said that there should be no undeserved inequality. There should be no undeserved inequality. That is, you don't deserve to be rich or you don't deserve to be poor. You have worked very hard, but still you are poor. Why? Maybe you are born in a very low class family. Right? So there should be no undeserved inequality. Okay. Then they also said that an equal society or a more equal society or an equal society which is consistent, an equal society that is consistent with meritocracy, with merit, is the goal. An equal society that is consistent with merit is the goal. Right? course, so many people writing about equality, inequality, Mill, Rousseau, so many people, Hobbes, Locke, so many people. All proponents or heroes of that enlightenment phase. What is equality? I'm just like trying to summarize. The general conclusion it appears from during this phase is that we are all born free and equal, first of all. That is, you are not, God did not create you more equal and me less equal. It's not like that. Okay, we are all born free and equal. Okay, then there should be hence no undeserved inequality. That is, you did not deserve to get that inequality. Alright. Now, apart from this, our goal is to create a more equal society, but it should be consistent with the principle of merit. It should be consistent with the principle of merit. Alright. This is what is the idea that emerged during this phase. Now, generally, when we speak about equality, we speak about three kinds of concepts. We speak about three kinds of concepts. That is, the idea of what kind of equality. Okay, when we speak about equality or what kind of equality, we speak about three kinds of equalities. One is what is called formal equality. The second one is what is called equality of opportunity. The third one is what is called equality of outcome. Equality of outcome. When we speak about equality, we speak about these three kinds of concepts. Now, what is formal equality? Formal equality refers to the idea that there are no special privileges to anyone. Or in other words, everyone is formally equal and equal before law. This is the idea of formal equality. There are no special privileges. For example, in traditional India, if you committed a crime, the kind of punishment that is given to you depended upon what caste you belong to. Alright? The kind of punishment that is given. Suppose if a Brahmin steals, right, there is a very small nominal punishment. But if a untouchable man steals, then maybe he will be flogged to death. Alright? That is not formal equality. That there is no equality before law. Okay? There are some special privileges to some section and some disprivileges to another section. Like that in Europe also, the clergy, the people who belong to the religious institutions, then the nobles, the kings, they had special privileges. Alright? So, the idea of formal equality is all about saying that everybody will be treated equally. Whatever are the rules of the game will be applied equally to everyone. Alright, that is the idea. Now imagine this. There are two students. The goal is UPSC rank. This is the goal. Alright. Now, this person is a Brahmin. His father is an IAS officer. Mother, IFS officer. Brother, let us say he became a doctor. He studied MD and he became a doctor. Okay, and their total family income per capita, the total family monthly income is something like 5 lakhs. Okay. Okay. Legal income, 5 lakhs. Okay, monthly legal income is 5 lakhs. Alright, went to very good schools, had all the privileges, right? Whatever. Dalit boy, Mala, for example. Father, daily wage laborer. Okay. Mother, housewife. Brother, auto. Okay. Then monthly total income, some 15,000 rupees. Total income is 15,000 rupees. Okay, born in a rural area. Schools, we know how government schools are. No coaching, no textbooks, no power. Not even a room to study. Not even a room to study. Okay. Space is one very important aspect for you to study and excel. You should have privacy. You should have calmness. You should have space. They don't have that. They live in a 2 rooms portion. This fellow, some 7-8 bedrooms like that. Okay, something like that. Now, in this situation, this is the UPSC rank. He also wants UPSC rank. Okay. Now, if you say that I will give you a UPSC rank if you get say 850 marks, I will give you also a UPSC rank if you get 850 marks. Does it appear just to you? Does it appear just? It doesn't, right? Because this person may be starting from 0. He has to travel 850 marks. This person is starting from minus 850. He has to travel double the distance. So for this person, the cutoff should be somewhere in middle like this. Okay, so that he is traveling exactly the same distance as this person. All right. This is the idea of equality of opportunity. Okay, that is, opportunities should be equalized so that you are free to become unequal. Suppose if I have made both these people start from the same position, right? Then how far each of this person will travel will purely be based on their abilities and their merit. Isn't that the case? So that is the second type of equality we speak about. Equality of opportunity. That is, you equalize the opportunities for everyone and let people become unequal based on their abilities. Let people become unequal based on their abilities. Alright, that is the idea. Then the third idea is what is called equality of outcome. Now what these kind of people believe is that, suppose say this person can do mathematics a little better, okay, than this person. So he will crack IIT JEE, then IIM, then some Google, Facebook like this job. Okay, this person doesn't know mathematics. He knows how to paint well. Okay, he knows how to paint well. Now, does this mean, or should this mean that in their adult life they should be condemned to an unequal existence? Should they be condemned to an unequal existence? Opportunities are same, but this person has some skills which are valued today. Maybe tomorrow artificial intelligence will take over and then art will be the only thing that is human enough. Right? Maybe after 200-300 years this person will, his skills are more valuable. So he is actually creating some kind of, he's doing some benefit to humanity by keeping art alive. For example, you can reason like this, right? Just because he has some random abilities, okay, should we live in an unequal society? Is that the case? Then this John Rawls that we spoke about just now, theory of justice, he says that assume that this person has more ability and this person has less ability. Ability is an accident. Ability is an accident. You are just born with that ability. What did you do to get it? You are just born with it. If you can do mathematics well, then some person cannot do it. Okay. It is just an accident. What did you do to get that ability? Okay. Then opponents may ask, maybe both had same ability, but this person worked hard to increase that ability, to sharpen it. Rawls replies saying that the ability to work hard is also an ability. Okay. The basic idea being that just because somebody has one kind of an ability, another person has another kind of an ability, should we really be living in an unequal society? No, right? They claim that equality as an outcome is a moral good. We are all happier in a more equal society. Everyone collectively is more happier in a more equal society. In fact, it's a very popular book called The Spirit Level, written by Wilkinson and Pickett, two scholars. Kate Wilkinson, Richard Pickett. Richard Pickett and Kate Wilkinson. Whatever is it. Called The Spirit Level. The book is called The Spirit Level. This book, through statistical data, actually shows that wealth has no relation to overall social well-being. So they compared rich societies. They compared rich societies and they showed that the more rich the society is doesn't mean that it has more social goodness or that society is more harmonious. No. The more equal the society, the better that society. Because they found that in more unequal societies, there is greater conflict, infighting, conflict, alcoholism, crime, riots, political distrust between people, less cooperation, more shame, more shame. Inequality creates shame. And they said that if you live in a more equal society, then you are a happier person. And if the goal is happiness, this is the idea. Alright? So these are the various types of arguments that are made in favor of equality. That is, there should not be any undeserved special privileges. Opportunities should be same for all. Outcomes should also be equal. This is the most deepest level of equality that they want. Alright? This is the idea. Now, at the same time, some people actually said that inequality is good. Okay? Inequality is good. Some people said that inequality is good. Inequality is good. Now I have made the argument for equality. Can someone with common sense make an argument for inequality? What will happen if there is absolute this type of equality? Okay, forget about these two. There can be no question that morally these two things are the right things to do. But suppose if we live in this type of society, what happens? Everybody is equal.
There is no in Europe tradition to modern కు చేంజ్ అయింది సార్. అలాంటి ట్రాన్సిషన్ జోన్ అనేది ఉంది. ట్రాన్సిషన్ అనేది ఉంది.
Okay. ఎందుకు?
All are equal.
So why should I work? It's not about that transition. Why should I work? Or why should you work? Why should you work? This is the idea. One second. This is the most important idea. Why should you work? When we do Marx, he explains why should you work even in an equal society. Okay, it's not as commonsensical as your parents told you. Okay, even when there is absolute equality, you will still work. Why? We will debate that. But one important argument that is made: why should you work? They said that you are born free and equal. Okay, so there are two things: liberty and equality. These are the two things. You need freedom and you need equality, and you need both together. You need them. All right, this is classic. Do you want bread or do you want freedom? This is the question that they ask, right? If you say I want bread, I'll give you bread but I'll take away your freedom, not acceptable to us. I will give you freedom, but you will go hungry. Still not acceptable to us, right? You want bread and you want freedom. You want both, isn't it? They said everyone is born free and equal, and they said that if in a particular society, irrespective of how much effort you put in, you are being given the same reward. Then there is no motivation to work, because I can work less, right? It's a disincentive to work if everyone is free. All right. You will have a society full of people working to less than their potential. Such a society will collapse. There is only one alternative to this. That is what is called state repression. State repression. Only one alternative to it, called state repression. That is, if you don't work, the state will jail you. Okay? It is that fear which is supposed to motivate you to work. Because there can be only two motivations, self-interest or fear. If you don't work, state will jail you. This would mean that the state becomes quite powerful vis-a-vis this individual. State becomes very powerful vis-a-vis the individual. And if you don't work, it is going to jail you. This is what happened in countries such as USSR, China, Cuba. This is what happened. All right. They used to parade thousands and thousands of people into slave condition, like work camps. And by the fear of being imprisoned, by the fear of being sent on exiles, they were made to work. All right. So, some people said that this is the alternative. Do you want this alternative? Or do you want an alternative where the state provides some amount of, minimum amount of equality in terms of opportunity, and people are allowed to become unequal according to their abilities? Alright, that is the question. But the problem is that opportunities can never be equalized in an unequal society. There is that problem also. Hypothetically, I am saying that you equalize the opportunity, but if you are living in an unequal society, how do you equalize opportunities? No, right? You cannot. It looks something like India. The rich send their children to private schools, English medium schools. The poor, in the name of equality of opportunity, are sent to government schools. Is this equality of opportunity? No. As long as there is inequality in society, equality of opportunity will be very difficult to achieve. It is this balance that we try to strive for. That is, we want freedom, we want people to work hard, we want people to actualize their abilities, compete, and in the process our societies become more efficient. But at the same time, we don't want undeserved inequalities. Right? This is the basic debate that occurred during the transition of Europe from a traditional to a modern society. Is this clear to everyone? What are the basic ideas involved here? Now, okay, just 10 more minutes. We spoke about equality. Now let us simply speak about inequality. Inequality means that you are unequal in some respect, isn't it? Now this inequality can be of three types, okay, or there are three things on which you can be unequal. Alright, what is the idea here? That there is some scale, right? On this scale, right, suppose this is the scale, right? Okay, you can be marked anywhere on this scale, isn't it? Now there are three dimensions along which you can be marked: wealth, status, and power. These are the three dimensions along which you can be unequal. Alright? Either that you have more or less wealth. Okay? That is, this relates to income and assets. In terms of income and assets, you can be low or high. Status relates to estimations of honor. Estimations of honor. In a traditional village society, for example, in Telangana, for example, there is a Reddy who has 10 acres of land, then there is someone like a Mala who has 10 acres of land. Both have equal wealth. But in terms of status, they are different, because there is caste is a kind of a status hierarchy. It's not simply wealth hierarchy. It is a kind of status hierarchy. He has more status compared to a lower caste. An upper caste has more status compared to lower caste. Okay? Is that clear? What is social honor? The idea of honor. Power, in sociology, it is defined as the ability to coerce. The ability to coerce. Okay? That is, if I am able to make you do something in spite of resistance from you, then I have power. Okay? If I am able to make you do something even when you don't want to do it, then I have power over you. Okay? This is what is power. Alright? Suppose a police has legitimate power to make you do certain things, right? Even when you don't want to do it. State power. State has power. State can pass laws and make you do certain things. State has power. Like that, even in society, there are some groups who have power, some groups who do not have power. Alright? Now, you can be ranked, you can be low on wealth but high on status and power. You can be high on status but low on wealth and power. Any kind of permutation and combination is possible. But generally speaking, if you have one, you will have the rest. Generally. It's not a formula. Generally, if you are ranked very high on wealth, it means that you would also have status and power. Okay, it's like that. Okay. Now, this type of a ranking, where you are ranked uniformly across these three dimensions, this type of a thing is called symmetric inequality. Symmetric inequality. Okay, that is, or you can also call it cumulative inequality. Symmetric or cumulative inequality. That is, consistently across these three dimensions, you have neither money, status, or power. Okay, this is called cumulative inequality. Then the opposite of it is dispersed or asymmetric. Dispersed or asymmetric inequality. Okay, asymmetric inequality. So whenever you speak about inequality, you have to think in terms of, as a sociology student, unequal in terms of what? Unequal in terms of what? There are only three dimensions, okay? Wealth, status, and power. Unequal in terms of what? Alright? That is the idea. See, for example, how to think sociologically, right? There are a lot of lower caste movements in India, Dalit movements, for example. Alright? Now, some people say, give them jobs give them land, give them some whatever economic assets, then everything will be fine. That is the general way of thinking, commonsensical way of thinking. Okay. What do they want? Just give them some land or give them money, jobs like this. They are not asking for wealth, they are asking for status. Okay, you should reason like that. Okay, what a Dalit movement demands is not wealth. They want status. That is, the caste system is assigning inferior status to these people. Right? For example, what is untouchability? What is untouchability? Inferior status. It's an inferior status. Not allowed into the temple. Not allowed to wear good clothes. In fact, newspapers you can read sometimes. In recently 6 months back, I think, there is one kind of a slipper called Kolhapuri chappal. Has anyone bought it or seen it? I've never seen it. It seems when you walk wearing that, it makes some kind of a sound. Not Kolhapur. Sholapur. Okay, whatever. Now, one village panchayat passed a decree saying that no Dalit is allowed to wear this chappal. Only upper caste can wear this kind of chappal. And these Dalits, they said that what the hell is this? And one educated man who probably read in his civics textbook, Preamble of India, there is equality of opportunity, whatever. He said that, go to hell, I'll wear it. He was beaten to death. He was beaten to death. And you know that in North India, there is this tradition of, after the marriage is over, there is this horse riding ceremony. Here we have Bharat, no, in this car. Like that, they have a horse riding ceremony. So Dalits are not allowed to ride a horse after marriage. One Dalit tried to ride it, then they passed this thing saying that if you dare to do it, we will show you. This fellow went and complained to the collector. The collector actually had to ensure that this Dalit man's right to ride a horse after marriage is protected by deploying 500 rapid actions guards, police. All the police are standing, is riding horse. So many pictures in the... Tomorrow when you become a collector, you will have to face this kind of scenarios. Okay. What is the idea here? Riding a horse is not about whether you can buy a horse. It's about status. Whether you can ride a horse. Right? So, whenever you come across inequality, start thinking in terms of inequality of what? Is it of wealth? Is it of status? Is it of power? Alright? And whenever someone says that there should be equality, ask them, equality of what? Equality of what? And how to bring about it? And how is it consistent with this freedom? Ask them these questions. Okay? This is the... Okay. We live in an unequal world. We don't like it because there is lot of shame, humiliation involved in living with inequality. Oppression, discrimination involved in living in an unequal society. But how to make society equal? How to make society equal? Equality of what? It's a challenge. It's a theoretical challenge for us to address. Okay. There are certain scholars who had some views about this. We will learn about this when we do our sociology optional course. Alright.